Hi, this is your friendly neighborhood man in magenta wig, and it's time for a third peek into the bag of music swag. Now this time we're going to change it up a little bit. In the first two videos I showed off cool records from my collection. This time we're going to have a look at CDs. Now granted, I don't have as many cool CDs as I have records, but I do have a few I'd like to show off here. Now the first one is a promotional version of the single for They Might Be Giants song SCXXY. Now what's cool about this is, if you're familiar with the 12-inch single and things like that, you'll know there are a lot of remixes of this song floating around out there. Now this one actually has a remix that's not available outside of this CD, the Tease Radio Mix. So that's pretty cool. Little exclusive content here, definitely worth having, didn't cost me a whole lot. So, you know, if you are a TMBG fan, if you like collecting their stuff, it's worth looking that up on eBay. Now this is a very cool item I picked up in a little music shop in Pittsburgh here. This is a Russian 2 albums on 1 CD sort of compilation of the Traveling Wilburys 2 official albums, Volume 1 and Volume 3. Now, that's nice and all, you know, it's nice to have their 2 albums on 1 disc. But it actually goes a little farther than that, because the Russian company that put this out also put out a second disc. Now, as you may know, the Traveling Wilburys called their albums Volume 1 and Volume 3 as a joke. This one claims to have Volume 2. As you can see, it's just Tom Petty's album Full Moon Fever, but you know, it actually kind of works. You know, most of the Traveling Wilburys do appear on that album. It was released between the 2 Wilburys albums, so, you know, if there was ever an official Volume 2, Full Moon Fever is pretty much it. Now, the second album on here, it claims to be the bootleg called Volume 4.5, but it actually isn't. The creators of this compilation actually put together a sort of whole new Traveling Wilburys album using songs that they did in collaboration with other artists like Del Shannon, George Harrison's song where the Wilburys were kind of his backup band. And it's basically, you know, it's basically a whole other album by itself. Really goes together, you know, really flows, really makes for a good listen. If you can ignore the fact that Bob Dylan's Under the Red Sky is a really bad song. Now, speaking of Beatles-related oddities, this is something I found in a used CD store as a kid. This is a bootleg called Come Together Beatles in the 90s. Now, what this is a tie-in to the anthologies, where it actually includes John Lennon's demos of Real Love and Free as a Bird. And what makes this such a great find is it actually had the first ever appearance of a genuine outtake of the reunion version of Real Love, which I believe someone actually dug out of a trash can and pieced the tape back together. So it's nice to hear that interesting little part of Beatles, or I guess some would say Threedles history. Now, I do know there's another volume of this. I think it's called When I Get Older. That I've never actually seen. You know, I've seen it on various download sites and stuff, but you know, if I ever see the physical CD, I definitely want to pick that up, make a nice little companion to this. Now, as you can see, this is ICP's Carnival of Carnage. As you can also see if I flip it over, notice the different font compared to the more common version. Now, this is actually the original Detroit version that had 15 tracks on it. But this particular copy is slightly different. This one actually only has 14 songs. The last song, track 15, Taste, actually isn't burned onto the disc. Now, I don't think I'll really be able to show this on camera because you really have to look close to see it, but if you examine the back of the CD, there actually is a missing stripe of data where Taste should be. So, whether it's worth money because it's an odd misprint, especially since it's the original Detroit version, I don't know. I know there are people on the internet who know a lot more about the worth of ICP items. But hey, you know, it is a cool item. Might be a one-off for all I know. I mean, I've never heard of any copies of the Detroit version with that error. So hey, I mean, I'm trying to clear out my ICP collection. Name your price. Now this was a great find from the dollar bin at the exchange. Now, obviously this is Chumbawamba's Tubthumper. This is actually the Japanese version of Tubthumper. And you know, what's cool about this is, you know, growing up, the version of this album I was used to living in America was the censored version. Because all of the American pressings of this album, as far as I know, have the profanity edited out. And not only that, for legal reasons, the explanatory liner notes that go into kind of the details of what each song was about, have a lot of quotes from political figures and things, are actually all missing from the American version of the CD. So this was a great find. So this is the complete album as it should be, and not only that, it actually has several bonus tracks. They actually put a lot of the B-sides of the singles from that era on the end of the CD, so that makes it an amazing find, especially for $1. Well, as you can tell from one of my recent videos, I am a Milli Vanilli fan. Now, again, you know, one of the quirks of growing up in America was we didn't get Milli Vanilli's second album. I mean, after Girl You Know It's True was revealed to not actually have those two guys on it, their popularity here essentially immediately went down the toilet. In Europe, not so much. Now, they had actually planned a worldwide second album called Keep On Running, and I believe I've actually seen an advertisement that showed what the cover of that looked like, and of course Rob and Fab were still on the cover because the controversy hadn't broken yet. Well, after the controversy broke, the album was canceled in America. It still came out in Europe, though, and in fact actually still says Keep On Running on the spine of the CD. But as for the cover, they rebranded the group The Real Milli Vanilli. Now, this was actually the first attempt at showing the actual singers. The actual Milli Vanilli singers are the two guys on the end. Now, the three people in the middle basically had nothing to do with the Girl You Know It's True version of Milli Vanilli, including this guy in the middle who seems to be added to the group just because he looks like Fab. I kind of wonder if they just thought people would see the cover and go, oh, you know, at least it still has one of the original members of the band. I don't know. But, needless to say, this album didn't come out in America. At least not in this form. Now, these three people in the middle actually re-recorded the vocals of the album without the two original Milli Vanilli singers. And the album was actually stripped of the Milli Vanilli name altogether and came out in America under the name Try and Be. And as far as I know, just sunk without a trace in America. I don't know if people got the Milli Vanilli connection or not. They probably didn't advertise that at the time. But by the time this was coming out in stores, I mean, Rob and Fab were trying to make it as their own group anyway, so I think most of the attention probably just went on to them. But yeah, I mean, if you are a Milli Vanilli fan, definitely check this out, because chances are you haven't heard this album. And, you know, if you like collecting different variations and mixes, this one's worth picking up too. You can find this one on Amazon for not too much. So, no, this was a great flea market find. One time I was at the flea market, I came across a guy with a table full of CDs. All the CDs he had were basically, you know, heavy metal or industrial or goth, and they were all just legit albums. They were all just, you know, your regular everyday, like Marilyn Manson albums, Evanescence albums and stuff. This one stuck out to me, and I'm so glad that I spotted this. This is a 9 Inch Nails CD called Demos and Remixes. Now, what this is, you might be familiar with a CD called Purest Feeling, which actually has the original scrapped version of the Pretty Hate Machine album. I mean, very early, different version of the album, very different versions of the songs than what you might be used to. This actually makes a great companion to this, because this CD is mostly other early versions of Pretty Hate Machine songs. I mean, as far as I know, there isn't any overlap between this and Purest Feeling. You know, this actually has unique versions of the songs, a lot of which debuted on this disc. And as a matter of fact, this CD was actually reissued under the title Purest Feeling 2. And not only does it have a lot of great Pretty Hate Machine related content, it actually has both tracks from the extremely rare Halo Zero, which was a single for the song Suck. As far as I know, the versions on this are actually a little bit higher quality than what's on that single. I mean, fairly recently I compared what's on this with that single, and these two seem to be a little bit higher fidelity, so that makes it even more of an interesting find. Now, I recently saw there's another CD with a similar cover called Demos and Remixes 2. That one, as far as I understand, is pretty much just a waste of time. It wasn't made by the same outfit, as far as I know. You know, there's nothing rare on it. It's basically just songs from Fixed, the Head Like a Whole EP. I think there's a couple songs from Further Down the Spiral. So basically everything you could go to a store and buy. It's not worth it. But yeah, this one, if you do like the early years of 9 Inch Nails, this is a great CD to look for. And finally, I gotta have some Rocky-related content. So this is actually something I picked up at the 40th anniversary convention. This is something I had seen online for years, but I didn't know much about it. So, you know, I picked it up for 10 bucks, had to take it home, see what it was. This is a Japanese CD called The Rocky Horror Picture Show Live 1991, or some variant of that title. Now what this is sort of an amateur recording of a tribute band playing live before and after a Rocky showing in Japan. Now, no insult intended. It's bad. It's bad. Especially over at the Frankenstein place. I mean, they really they do that song some damage. Sweet Transvestite is especially interesting. I'm not sure what they translated the lyrics into, but the chorus has basically been reduced to the lead singer screaming, "Unisex!" Maybe that's the closest I could get. I don't know. I also don't remember the term "fuck you" being in the lyrics. But yeah, interesting little item, you know. At the very least, the cover's pretty cool. I also have to show this. Hopefully this shows up on camera. The CD actually has this great drawing of little chubby versions of the Rocky characters that I love. So, so yes, this has been the third installment of Man in Magenta Wig's Bag of Music Swag. Hopefully I'll have more soon. The next one will probably be a mix of records and CDs. Kind of running out of cool stuff to show, but I still have a few things I wouldn't mind showing off. So, for now, I've got a bunch of other videos I have to film. I have to start working on them, so I have to kind of move along a little bit. So, until then, bye!